Grüß, willkommen in einem aufregendes video. Welcome to yet another exciting video. In this case, episode 16 of my Star Trek The Original Series episode breakdown video guide. In this video, I'll be looking at season 4, or technically, season 1 of the animated series, episodes 87 to 92 of Star Trek, to identify historical references which can be used to determine the original history of the Star Trek universe. The episode order I'm using is the production order, and I'm following on from the original series, assuming that the two seasons of the animated series represents, let's say, season 4 and 5 of the original series. In order to understand the development of the history or vision of Star Trek, we need to study the episodes in the order they were written. While I'm uncertain of the exact writing order, the production order is about as close as I can confirm. The episode order information as broadcast is also included. Special thanks to the transcripts which can be found on the Geschichte site. When Gene Roddenberry created Star Trek back in 1966, he had a vision which remained basically consistent. When The Next Generation was released in 1987, Gene's vision had changed and the past needed to change in order to be consistent with this new vision. This video series will look at the original vision of Star Trek, starting with the earlier source material. Any historical facts from later sources which contradict the earlier references will assume to be in error for the purpose of this video. Minor changes in nomenclature can be excused. One of our planets is missing as the third episode of season 4, which is the first season of the animated series. By convention, it was considered the 87th episode produced. Its star date is 5371.3 and its original air date was the 22nd of September 1973. In this episode, we discover a new planet, in this case Alandra. The planet Alandra is consumed by an alien cloud. I'm assuming that it was not inhabited. If it was inhabited, it no longer is. And if that's the case, then I suppose it can be re-inhabited. In the episode, we are also told of a second planet, Mantillus. In this case, the planet Mantillus is also threatened by the alien antimatter cloud, and unfortunately for the people on it, is inhabited. I'm assumed it's a Federation planet, but it's unknown if it's alien or human. Its population is 82 million, so it's likely a human planet which is only recently colonized. Its governor is Bob Wesley, so that seems to make it fairly certainly a human planet. The key takeaways from this episode are that we discover two new planets, one of which is an inhabited human planet. Mudd's Passion is the 10th episode of Season 4, which is the first season of the animated series. By convention, it was considered the 88th episode produced. Its star date is 4978.5 and its original air date was 10th of November 1973. In this episode, we discover a new star system, in this case the Arcadian star system. In this star system, there is a planet called Motherlode, and it's inhabited by humans and aliens, as well as not being part of the Federation. It is a mining planet. It could be an alien world which humans have gone to for mining, which may be the most likely, or alternatively it's an uninhabited world that they decided to set up a mining facility and everyone's gone there. The episode also mentions a new alien species, in this case a Rigelian species. It's likely this race comes from Rigel 7, which has joined the Federation. Harry Mudd also in this episode describes another planet, Illyria 6, which is likely an alien Federation planet. Harry Mudd also describes another planet, in this case Sirius 9, which is also likely an alien Federation planet. Harry Mudd once again discovers even more planets, in this case Omega Cygini, which is also likely an alien planet, but may or may not be a Federation planet. I'll assume a Federation planet. It could be in the Omega star system, sharing the system with Omega 4, which is also a non-Federation alien planet, and another uninhabited planet. Harry Mudd describes yet another planet, in this case Ephepius 6, which is a mining planet, likely human, and likely part of the Federation. Key takeaway from this episode is we discover a lot of new planets in this episode, thanks to Harry Mudd. Motherlode, Illyria 6, Sirius 9, Omega, Cygini, and Ephepius 6. The Magicks of Megas-Tu is the 8th episode of Season 4. It was the 89th episode produced. Its star date is 1254.4 and its original air date was 27th of October 1973. This is one episode which I feel we need to modify or possibly ignore. The Enterprise would be unlikely to be able to get to the galactic center, simply because it would take too long to get there. I don't think it's really possible, unless, of course, it does some really weird slingshot emergency maneuver, which is not the case here. On the other hand, you can say the Enterprise may have gone to locations where stars were being formed, which is a lot closer, there's lots of them, and was then sucked into an alternate dimension when it arrived there. In this dimension, the Enterprise meets Lucien. In this episode, the Enterprise is sucked into a magic-based universe where an intelligent race exists. In some ways, they really sound a little bit by Q, but I don't think they are. In this magic-based universe, there was only a single intelligent life form called the Megians. The Megians visited Earth millennia ago. The Megians left Earth in 1691 or about, as they were caught up with the Salem witch trials, and left soon after in a desperate attempt to escape the persecution of anyone that was a witch. One of the Megians was called Asmodeus. Asmodeus appears in the Book of Talbot, written in the 3rd millennium BC, so this may be when the Megians arrived on Earth. I'll round it to 3000 BC for simplicity. In the alternate universe, or magic-based universe, the planet of the Megians was called Megas-Tu. While it's unlikely the Enterprise went to the actual centre of the galaxy, they may have gone to a closer location where stars or even matter was being created in some way, shape or form. When there, they were sucked into a new universe where they met the Megians. The Megians used magic and visited Earth about 3000 BC. They got to Earth using magic somehow. They lived on Earth until 1691 AD, when they used magic to return to Megas-Tu. Lucien, the friend of Earth, was actually Lucifer when he was on Earth. The Time Trap is the 12th episode of Season 4. It was the 90th episode produced. Its star date is 5267.6, and its original air date was 24th of November 1973. In this episode, while the Enterprise was investigating the Delta Triangle, a sort of Bermuda Triangle in space, something weird happened. There's no clue to its exact location, but the Enterprise is caught in the trap that is the Bermuda Triangle of space, which in this case is called the Delta Triangle. While in the alternate universe, the Enterprise finds a Federation starship, the Bonaventure, which is supposed to be the first ship to have warp drive installed. I assume it is a starship based on the picture of it, and the first starship with warp, as some experimental ships would have certainly existed prior. It was certainly not the first ship, period, with warp drive. Warp drive was created in 2061, so this could imply this ship was built sometime in the following 5 to 10 years, which does seem a little bit early. While the first warp ship could have been called Bonaventure, I doubt that this is actually what she looked like. This seems like a far too large spacecraft for such an early period. We discover that lots of starships were caught in this trap, in this sort of Bermuda Triangle trap, and all the ships caught in the time trap founded a nation or pseudo-nation called Elysia, a nation made up of the derelict spaceships. Based on the quote in this episode, or the script, it's possible the first ship to arrive in the time trap, or at least the first ship which founded what was to become Elysia. Ships may have arrived earlier and they all died. Anyway, the first Elysian spacecraft arrived in the time trap in 1267 or 1,000 years ago. As well as the Enterprise, a Klingon spacecraft also got sucked into the time trap. We discover in the episode the Klingon warp drive is called the S2 Graph Unit. The most interesting information we glean from this episode is the existence of the Bonaventure, the first ship equipped with warp drive, or perhaps the first starship equipped in this manner. The other information is the existence of a Bermuda Triangle in space. The Slaver Weapon is the 14th episode of Season 4. It was the 91st episode produced. Its star date is 4187.3 and its original air date was 15th of December 1973. In this episode, another starbase is disclosed, in this case Starbase 25. We also get another planet in this episode, which is where the Slaver stasis box was found. I have to assume it was the home planet of the Kins, which would have fought and lost 4 wars with the humans prior to 2067 AD. I'm uncertain if it's part of the Federation, but as the slaver stasis box was found there and the Federation had it, I have to assume that it was. Also in this episode we discover another system, the Beta Lyrae system. The Enterprise goes to the Beta Lyrae system. There is something special at the system, and there is at least one uninhabited planet there on an ice-bound world. The special thing results in a lot of people stopping to view it, so maybe it's some weird ring around a planet or a weird colour of the sun or something of that nature. It's never actually provided, or the details are never provided. In the episode we discover the Kins and humans fought 4 wars, the last being in 2067. This may be possible, and warp drive was created in 2061. The earlier wars may have been incentive to develop the warp drive. I have to assume these were minor wars, as the Kins being on a single planet and the first 3 wars being probably closer to the Kins' raids than actual full-blown wars, with the 4th being the human effort to finally eliminate this annoying threat. If the wars were larger, they would have had a much more significant impact on the human expansion, but the wars may have helped the Earth to form a military, which was required when they finally met the Romulans. Perhaps the Bonaventure was built to conduct the 4th war. The Kins planet must be close to Earth, perhaps 50 to 60 light years away. The Kins and stasis box all come from actually another novel series, in this case novels by Larry Niven. While there is no issue introducing the slavers, Kins and status box to the world of Star Trek, I'll need to ensure we do not mix it up with Larry Niven's short stories. There are a lot of differences between this episode and the short story, so I assume only the elements which would fit were used in this episode, and it's important to not remember the elements that were not inserted in this episode, otherwise you'll get confused. The slavers could be a minor empire which fell many years ago, and the Kins a minor planet filled with unusually aggressive inhabitants which annoyed the Earth several times before the Earth pacified them. In this world the Kins-T are not permitted phases, possibly because they are unreasonably aggressive. After the 4th war in 2067, the Kins were forced to sign the Treaty of Sirius, indicating this system was close to Kins. This episode introduces the slavers, Kanins, and up to 4 Kins human wars. I'm a bit uncomfortable with this episode, but it can be slotted into the Star Trek timeline if required, and as it's part of the Star Trek animated series, it must be canon, so I will accept it. The Ambergris Element is the 13th element of Season 4. It was the 93rd episode produced. Its star date is 5499.9. Its original air date was 1st of December 1973. In the episode, we discover a water-covered world called Argos. This world is an alien world, which is likely not part of the Federation. It could be in Federation space, but the Federation is not aware it's inhabited. The inhabitants have the ability to alter an air-breathing life form into a water-breathing life form. Argos originally had a land-based civilization, but massive earthquakes covered most of the world with water. The inhabitants developed medicine, or a medication or a medical procedure, to allow the race to mutate into a water-breathing race, and as a result they survived. The only real takeaway we have from this episode is we find another inhabited planet, in this case Argos. Many of the later Star Trek movies and shows do not align with the original vision of the series. This is common in real history, as later historians attempt to change the past to justify their new beliefs in the present. As I personally enjoyed the original vision of Star Trek, I would hope future movies and TV shows would go back to its original roots, but I doubt it. And so this concludes episode 15 My Star Trek, the original series episode breakdown video series, in this case covering Season 1 of the animated series, episodes 87 to 93, and what I call Season 4 in order to align with the original series. Alle guten Dingen, kommen zu einem Ende.